Oscar Piastri is driving a car that shouldn't exist. A car that, according to the data, is too fast, too stable, and too ready for a team that was supposed to be behind. And what happened in Barcelona was not just impressive. It was terrifying. Because McLaren just revealed something they weren't supposed to. Something the other teams are praying doesn't show up in Bahrain. But here's the twist. The numbers from testing? They don't tell the real story. What Piastri did behind closed doors has engineers whispering, strategists scrambling, and one former world champion flat out refusing to comment. And by the time you hear what's inside that car, you'll understand why everyone else is in trouble. This changes everything. And we're just getting started. Subscribe now. Because once we break this open, you'll never see this season the same way again. It started quietly. No big announcement. No flashy reveal. Just a name on the schedule and a black and orange car rolling out of the garage. But within minutes, engineers were turning heads. Because this wasn't just another McLaren test. This was something else. From the very first outlap, the data coming back was strange. The MCL40 wasn't just running clean. It was calm, composed, almost surgical. And the driver? Oscar Piastri. The youngest guy in the title fight last year. Third in the standings. One mistake away from a world championship. He wasn't pushing. He wasn't chasing lap times. He was learning. And that's the part most people missed. While the rest of the field was still figuring out the basics, Piastri was already one step ahead. One detail proves it. Out of all drivers in the morning session, only one completed a full long-run simulation without thermal issues, without energy drops, and without sudden balance changes. It was Piastri. On a cold track. In a car that had just been rebuilt overnight. And this wasn't just luck. Because less than 24 hours earlier, that same car was undrivable. Fuel system failure. Telemetry blackout. Session cut short. It could have ended their test. Instead, it made them faster. And that's when people started whispering. How did they fix it so fast? Why does the car look more stable than Red Bull? Why is McLaren hiding their data? We'll get back to that. Because the answers? They're deeper than you think. But first, let's talk about the one thing McLaren did that no other team dared to try. And why it might be the smartest, or the riskiest, move of the entire season. Most teams arrived in Barcelona with a plan. Start basic. Collect data. Bring upgrades later. Ferrari said it outright. We're starting simple. The real car comes before the first race. Red Bull? Same approach. Test the core. Then unleash the package in Bahrain. But McLaren? Did the opposite. Their message was clear. What you see now is what you'll get. No major updates. No secret parts waiting in the factory. This is the MCL40. And that's why this is so dangerous. Because if they're already this quick, that's not potential. That's reality. Lando Norris set a lap just 0.2 shy of Lewis Hamilton's best time. And he did it on a car that's already finalized. No tricks. No sandbags. Just raw pace. But here's the twist. That performance? It's not even what the team was aiming for. They weren't chasing time. They were chasing control. The engineers weren't watching sector deltas. They were watching power curves, battery temperatures, and lift and coast profiles. Because 2026 isn't about going flat out. It's about knowing when not to. The new power units demand a different kind of intelligence. More electric. More sensitive. More brutal on energy limits. And McLaren? They're treating it like a chess match. While others sprint, they're planning 5 moves ahead. And here's where things get serious. This consistency-based approach? It's risky. If they misjudge the concept? If the MCL40 has a flaw, they have no backup plan. No upgrades in the pipeline. No second chance to rewrite the car before Melbourne. That kind of commitment only comes from one thing. Confidence. Not hope. Not potential. Belief. But is it justified? Or is it blind? That's what we're about to find out. Because what they discovered on that final morning with Piastri changes the whole picture. Here's what most people still don't get. This isn't just about McLaren building a great car. It's about who's driving it. Oscar Piastri is not the loudest. He's not the flashiest. He doesn't throw helmets or scream on the radio. But under that calm surface, there's calculation. There's control. And at Barcelona, he showed why that's the scariest thing of all. While other drivers were still fighting snap oversteer and trying to stabilize battery flow out of turn 4, Piastri was already doing something different. He was managing systems. He was integrating. On the radio, minimal chatter. No complaints. Just quiet adaptation. And the data proved it. McLaren ran one of the cleanest long runs of the entire week. 0 drops in power delivery. No emergency cooldown laps. And the balance? Stable from the first lap to the last. In cold conditions. On a green track. With a car that had just come back from major surgery. But here's what really matters. He did it while learning a system no one fully understands yet. These 2026 cars are more complicated than anything we've seen in a decade. Manual activation of active aero. Triple mode energy harvesting. Battery release zones. Overload limits. It's like flying a jet while solving a math problem at 200 miles per hour. And somehow, Oscar Piastri made it look boring. That's not normal. And the teams watching from across the paddock? They saw it too. One engineer from a rival top team, who asked not to be named, said it best. Piastri's car was the only one that didn't look scared. Think about that. Not fast. Not clean. Not scared. That's when the mood changed. Because now the question isn't just how fast the MCL40 is. The question is, how long until Piastri starts dominating? And worse, has he already started? We'll come back to that. Because the answer might be hidden in a single moment. A decision McLaren made behind closed doors. And a piece of tech they've been testing that no one else is talking about. On paper, McLaren didn't top the charts. They didn't dominate the headlines. But inside the paddock? They were the most watched team on Friday. And not because of speed. Because of silence. The MCL40 wasn't screaming down the straights. It wasn't twitching through corners. It was gliding. It was smooth in places where others were unpredictable. Especially in Sector 2, the technical heart of Barcelona. That's where everything changes. Because what McLaren unlocked in that sector is more valuable than a fast lap. It's a window into a secret setup. And it all comes down to how they're handling the energy recovery system. Let me explain. The new 2026 cars rely far more on electric power than ever before. No more MGUH. 3 times more output from the MGUK. And all of it has to be harvested, stored, and deployed manually, lap after lap. For some teams, it's chaos. Power spikes. Battery drains. Rear instability under throttle. But McLaren? McLaren figured out how to flatten the curve. They're not overheating the rear tires. They're not overloading on exit. And that's because of something most people missed. They're using aerodynamics to help the battery. Sounds insane, but it's true. By managing the drag profile with active aero in exactly the right places, they're easing the load on the electric motor. Less resistance on the straights. Less stress on recovery under braking. More headroom in the battery. And the result? A car that's more efficient at full tilt than most teams are in conservative mode. Think about that. While others are lifting early to save charge, McLaren is still accelerating. That's not just fast. That's strategic. But here's where it gets even more dangerous. This isn't something they copied. It's something they built into the concept months ago. They planned for this. That's what separates them right now. While others are reacting to the new regulations, McLaren is executing them. And the teams who underestimated them? They just realized the race might already be on. But McLaren never waited for the lights. Let's connect the dots. They're not bringing major upgrades. They're not making big setup changes between tests. And they're not relying on raw power to stay competitive. So, what's the actual plan? Simple. Consistency. Not just across stints. Across weekends. Across continents. Across chaos. While Ferrari tweaks setups and Mercedes tests new parts, McLaren is building something far more dangerous. A repeatable baseline. Because if your car behaves the same on every track, if your drivers know exactly what to expect, you stop firefighting. You start racing. That's the real secret. The MCL40 doesn't need to be the fastest car at every track. It just needs to work everywhere. And that's what Barcelona revealed. It worked on cold tires. It worked with fluctuating battery loads. It worked after an all-nighter rebuild. It worked on the worst day of the test. And even better on the best one. And here's the terrifying part. Most teams will arrive in Bahrain with new pieces, new wings, new cooling systems. That means more variables, more uncertainty, more risk. But McLaren? They'll arrive with data, with stability, with Piastri and Norris already in sync. No adjustment period. No guesswork. Just lights out and go. And if they're quick in Bahrain? Even just close? Then this plan becomes a problem. Because every other team will still be figuring out their first update, while McLaren starts banking points. And that's what nobody's saying out loud. In a season this unpredictable, front-loading results is the most powerful move on the board. It's not about being fast in June. It's about surviving March and April without error. And that's exactly what McLaren is preparing for. And now, you can see it. This isn't about Oscar Piastri getting a few podiums. This is about a team and a driver positioning themselves to ambush the championship while the others are still warming up. But the final piece of the puzzle? The one that could turn this from smart into unstoppable? That's coming up next. Because there's one number. Just one. That tells the whole story. And almost nobody noticed it. It's easy to get lost in lap times. Everyone wants to see who's on top. But real engineers? They're not looking at the stopwatch. They're looking at drop-off. And here's where McLaren did something unsettling. Oscar Piastri's long run on Friday? Consistent. Lap after lap. Minimal degradation. No panic calls. No tire drop. No overheating brakes. And the final lap of his stint? Just 4/10 slower than the first. 4. In a test where most stints fell off by over a second and a half after 10 laps. That number changes everything. Because it points to 3 deadly truths. 1. The MCL40 is gentle on its tires even under heavy electric deployment. 2. Their cooling systems are already optimized, something teams like Aston Martin and Audi are still miles away from. And 3. Piastri is not just driving fast. He's managing. He's reading the car in real time. He's syncing throttle, brake, harvest, and deployment without destabilizing the platform. That is incredibly hard to do this early in the season. Especially with a brand new energy package that demands constant recalibration. And yet, he made it look simple. That's the number. 4/10 of degradation. That's what has rival engineers quietly sweating. Because if this holds true in Bahrain, if this wasn't a one-off, then McLaren has built a race car, not a show car. A machine designed not to impress on the timesheet, but to survive every compound, every track temp, and every strategic curveball. And when you combine that with 2 drivers operating at peak synergy, you don't get surprise podiums. You get momentum. Unstoppable, quiet, compounding momentum. But there's still one piece left. The part that's not on any spreadsheet. Because all the data in the world still can't explain the thing that scares the grid the most. And that's what we'll get to next. Because what's driving this entire resurgence is something deeper than tech. And it started the moment Oscar Piastri walked back into the garage after Thursday's failure.